I'm going to call the April EIC meeting to order. And I'll ask Greg to please lead us in the invocation.
Thank you. Would you please bow with me in prayer? Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for the opportunity to serve. We thank you again for this wonderful community. Lord, we just thank you for the rain over the weekend. We thank you for this time of year when we are able to remember your sacrifice on the cross and the miracle of your resurrection. Lord, we just pray that you would be with us today and give us wisdom as we deliberate. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay. Item number 2, the Visitor Citizens Forum. If there's someone that wants to speak on an item that is not on the agenda, this is your opportunity to do so. Do we have anybody signed up to speak? No speakers. Excuse me. Thank you. Okay. Item number 3, approval of the minutes from last meeting.
Make a motion to approve them?
Thank you. We have a motion. Second. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, please raise your hand. Perfect. All right. Monthly reports. Item 4A.
Well, good afternoon, all y'all. Hope everybody had a good holiday weekend. And I think we have one more meeting for 2 of you before your time here is up. And so,
Look so excited.
I'm not excited. I'm not excited.
All the thoughts.
I don't like so many changes. Not excited at all. But we'll keep having some good meetings between now and then. So,
Every now and then.
we're gonna have a quick update on all 6 of the projects, or I guess 7 of the projects in total, that are part of the Quality Life Bond. And we will start with the Keller Theater. So if you have been by the theater, it's kind of hard to see all the things that are going on because it's on the roof primarily, or kind of in the back. Construction commenced in the beginning of March and will be done by the 31st, and that's Guido Construction. Still my favorite name in construction business. I saw their office when I was in Fredericksburg, and I was like, oh man, there it is. So their budget for the project is 2.99. That's the agreement that we have with them, and there's actually a deduct on that for a roofing. We had a deduct alternate for 2 different types of roofing, TPO and oh god, I'm gonna blank on the other phase. So we have a deduct in there actually. So there has been a request by Playhouse 2000, and I need to get that in front of y'all. We have to vet a few of the things in there. Some of those won't be germane because they're really the responsibility of the tenants, not really attached to the building, not permanent fixtures. Kind of, if you flipped it over, a few of those might fall out. But they have a request for some updates to the seating, a little bit of the lighting, which is a security issue, and sconces on the side. The Prometheum, I'm going to get that word right, which is the arch overhang, to be repainted. So a few things like that. I'll be able to bring that back to you next month for consideration. Again, all within that scope, because we had budgeted $4 million for the project, and we're at just shy of 3 at this point. And there's the work that's being done. Okay, so I told you about, if you look at the picture in the middle, all right, that door, that black door in the very back there, is the door you walk out of to stand over the men's restroom. When I told you last time that you wanted to be a little careful standing above the men's restroom, that's where I was standing. I wouldn't put, Celeste, I wouldn't put you up there. So I definitely couldn't be standing up there. So a lot of HVAC work going on, a lot of selective demo going on at this point, and then roughing in a lot of stuff right now. So they'll be working from the back. When they get to the front, I think there'll be a section of the street we may have to close off for a portion. We're certainly gonna have to close off the entirety of the sidewalk because that overhang comes out pretty far. And so when we've talked about that already in kind of our safety meetings, and so as we move through the progress, they're doing a really good job. No safety issues to speak of at this point.
So, do those concrete slabs get moved someplace? Or is that not concrete?
That is,
middle.
those are forms, so it's for the AC units.
Oh,
The
they look
base
like they're
form.
filled with concrete.
They are.
Oh,
They're just, that's holding it to the shape together right
So, not a lot of
you will?
fun stuff to talk about for this project. This is like a sewer line project. You got to have a roof, so you got to have AC. It's not fun and cool and neat, but you know, if you want to see some of it, we can certainly take you by to take a look at portions of it. And if you want, we could do that to go look at some of the changes that they're asking for. If y'all ask, just let me know, and we can coordinate that with Jeffrey to see what he's talking about. But I'll bring that back next month as a request. Okay. But this one looks like we're going to have some pretty decent savings, so I'm excited about that because we got our bids back for the pool, and we budgeted this as about a $6 million project when we put this out to bid. We received 2 bids back on the project. Somebody tried to hand in a bid after it was over, but we can't, not allowed to accept those kind of things after the fact. We got the bids on the 17th. We haven't had too much of a chance to review all of it and get down in the weeds, but we're in contact with the low bidder to talk about some of the issues that they're facing and why they came in. Both bids came in pretty close to each other, and why I don't feel like there's inaccuracies in there is that the alternates were 6 alternates, and the assumptions that we had for the alternates were spot on. So the base of the bids for all the alternates were almost exactly what we had listed as our assumptions. The pool portion of it is my understanding is where the increase is coming from, and then the concerns from the tariffs I think are just putting everybody at a 5% jump, which for us that's a pretty good peg. That's $300,000, and so we have already done a considerable amount of value engineering, and we were really hopeful that we would get all the things that we had plus some alternates in here. Now I'm not so sure where we're going to end up with the alternates. So we were really excited. We are really excited still to show you the renditions for the pool. Rosa Ledesma is here from Parks and Rec. And so this is what the new building would look like. That's the front entrance coming in from the parking lot there. This is current desk, just kind of a reimagined version of that. Current desk. A new wading pool for the babies.
Oh.
All right. A little skylight for folks so some sunlight would hit that so it's not cold all the time. All right. Now this is where some things are in these photos that are going to get taken out. So on the right-hand side, you'll see there's stadium seating and a covered covering for that. Those are in the alternates at this point. They didn't have a chance to take them out. There's another architectural feature in a sort of a breezeway between the locker rooms are to the right, and between the locker rooms and the mechanical room and other equipment rooms, there's a little breezeway extra feature that's not going to be in there either. So we've stripped out where we thought we needed to be, where the architects expected that probable cost to come out. We took out what we thought we needed for the alternates. But the pool piece, I think, we have some value engineering still to do with the contractors on the removing of the coping and the plaster and redoing that. And I think we have some other areas that we're going to be able to do some, kind of some horse trading to get us where we need to be. The bulkhead. So this was pitched and designed as a competitive swim pool that eventually could be year-round, right? So we added heating to it. The bulkhead is essentially something that will sit in the middle of the pool. So you can have competition swim, which needs to be 25 yards. If you got technical questions on this, Rosa's gonna be the one to help you. And it's movable, right? So it doesn't have to sit there the whole time. That thing's about $340,000. So we don't need it right away, right? So that's one area where we might be able to kind of hold off on a purchase for that and see where we can add some value, remove rock from here and use other material. There's a lot of ways that we can save on it. We'd already took about $900,000 out for the team locker rooms. Couldn't afford that. Another $250. We're at about $1.5 million in the alternates where we're at, removed from it. And the base bids are, again, it's only like 2 days since we've gotten them, and we've had a chance to kind of have little conversations. So, we're still going to talk with them, value engineer that thing a little bit more. But I think we might want to have a discussion about if we have savings from the theater project and a little bit of savings maybe from the golf project, are we willing to push some of those savings to this project, right? That's kind of where we're at. Our hope is to get that down to 6.1. That number, that's within the budget for what we can do. I don't know what that's going to do to the project, what kind of changes that would make, and does that change sort of the nature and the scope of what we were looking for? Really and truly, I think the pool portion of it, we probably can reduce a little bit, but I think there was just some uncertainty and concern related to just the changing nature of everything around us right now. I wouldn't want to have to bid things these days. I don't. I do have to bid things, and I don't like to do it because you don't know what it's going to cost.
You say the budget is 6 million?
So the total budget for the project is 7.
7, yeah.
The Marmon Mock design team, their fee for the architecture and the engineering, and then for the construction administration through the project is $896. So it leaves a $6.1 million price tag there for that. So there's my bad news for the day. Hopefully it's like $350,000 worth of bad news. It's not there yet. Higher than that, probably. So we're gonna spend the week, talk to the perceived low bidders, see where we can get to, see what changes we could VE out of the project, and come back. So I might ask y'all to come back for kind of a special meeting because it's sort of time sensitive. Because the longer we wait, the further this pushes out the timeline for opening up in 26 this summer. So if y'all are amenable to it, maybe in 2 weeks or something like that, we might ask you to come back and look at amending that contract.
Question,
Yep.
it sounds like we're anticipating at least $1 million in savings on other projects.
About.
Around.
Yes, around.
Okay.
I'm hopeful.
Do you want to look to this group today to just get kind of an idea whether members of the board want to, when you're looking at all of the items before we meet again formally, if that's something that you want to take into consideration? If we do have those cost savings.
Yes. We very confident with the theater project. Where we're at with golf. We are adding, I think we're going to be at about 3.5 for golf is where we think we're going to be. So about $500,000 in there. I'm reluctant to say that we'd have $1 million for the theater, but $750 is not a crazy number. And then maybe $350 for golf, just in case something happens. Nothing's going to happen. They're planting green grass in the next 2 weeks. So those are some of our last pieces. So yeah, we could have up to that.
Michael, from staff's perspective, are there other projects that you guys would want to consider with surplus funds from the golf course or the Callow project in addition to the pool? Like, are there other competitors for funding out of that savings, or is it pretty much the pool is the top priority?
So the pool is the biggest priority. I mean, there's always more projects than we have funding for, right? These were the top projects from park standpoint. It was golf, the Olympic pool, the Cali Theater. We knew that that one needed to happen. And then the other projects that came through from Parkside was Guadalupe and KSP. So the focus from Parks and Rec Board standpoint, and Rosie, you got to correct me if I'm wrong, is really kind of focusing on Singing Wind. They have a new master plan for Singing Wind. This is a part of Singing Wind, but playground replacement there is needed. There's 2 playground sets that are fairly old out there. We're planning to use a little bit of ARPA funds to do some disc golf out on the hillside over there. But there's future expansion of the skate park that exists out there, taking out that softball, baseball field that is kind of a dog park and doing something else with that. Not having those bleachers sitting out there. It's kind of a funky dog park at this point. So it would, I mean, we were all hoping we'd come back to you and say, hey, we got $1 million. Let's go do X project or Z project. And this one, and looks like it's going to be the one that probably take some of that. We could. There's a couple other projects that could probably be done if we have $350,000 left over. We could
And
certainly.
just speaking for myself, I'd love to hear from the Parks Board and staff, just kind of holistically, and maybe there's more, budgeting to do, but just kind of hear what their priorities are, before we just say, yeah, go ahead and use it for the pool. Just make sure that we're all on the same page as far as what those quality of life project priorities need to be.
Sure.
And I think that, if I remember somewhere along the way, there's been situations where we kind of come back with scenario A, scenario B, scenario C.
Mhm.
That for
Yeah.
consideration type thing. Is that what you're thinking about for a meeting in a couple of weeks, maybe?
Yeah, so I mean, where we're at right now is we have scenario A, which is the base bid, and then B, C, D, E, and F, right, which are all the alternates. But now, part of the base bid, we're going to look at and go, okay, well, let's see if we can, is there a way for us to sort of revamp that base bid to now have some alternates in it as well,
Okay.
right? In theory, we could get down to maybe 6.1.
So I wanted to ask Rosa,
Yeah,
this is
please.
one of the, one of the things that we talked about when we were looking at this pool, making it a year-round pool and making it a competitive pool and having the 8 lanes. I know that you've worked to really make that happen as well. So it seems to me that there is an interest in long course competition in Texas, and even if you don't put it in the bulkhead, you could still have this long course competition. Now, I don't know if y'all did any kind of research to see, what you could bring in long course versus short course.
Yeah, so you're correct in that there is a need for long course. Long course swimming pools are really hard to come by. And so it's definitely an amenity that can be used long course wise. I don't have specific data on whether there's more competitive swim with long course versus
Yeah, sure.
short course, but there's definitely opportunities for both.
Right, yeah. So I'd encourage you to consider that even if you have to take out this bulkhead, that we could still get competition here. And I'm going to put in my vote right now for having the touchpads and scoreboard, because that's one of the things that will bring people who want to have competition in a long course pool will want to also see.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway, I'm going to just stick
Yeah.
that in there.
Sure.
Thank you.
So, yes, ma'am, we heard that. The scoreboard and the touchpads they're already in the alternates. And,
Yeah.
and the way that we viewed all that was basically if somebody comes in like Shriner or Tybee or a combination of both, or private swim groups, and want to help fund that, and they can brand a portion of that, we can go that route. We talked
that's
about
good.
using temporary touchpads if we need to, right? We can always bring those in for events as kind of a stopgap measure when we need it, instead of outright owning them for now. And the bulkhead, it's an item that we can save until the last minute, because it's basically free, not free floating, but it's the easiest thing to acquire at the last minute, right? And it will give us the functionality, and so if we have savings enough to be able to do it.
Yeah, but that becomes permanent, right?
Yeah, permanent-ish. It can move. It's centered for the 25 meters, but then you can push it, closer to, you can't put it all the way to the edge of the pool on the shallow end, but you can push it all the way to the edge of the pool on the deep end.
But you can't have 50 meters.
But you
with
can't,
it in.
no,
So you couldn't have a long course
you can have 40,
competition.
48 and a half.
Yeah,
I don't
that wouldn't, that wouldn't be legal for competition.
Yeah.
But so that's what I'm saying, it's like, there's still good things that can happen even if that doesn't go in.
Absolutely, sure.
I think from the beginning of this project, it's always been the goal to make this a marketable thing for our community so that we can bring the competitions to the community. And I think generally speaking, we all want to continue on that course obviously if we can afford to. Any ways that can be utilized to save money, obviously you guys are trying to do that. We encourage that. I think give us this 2-week call and have us come back and let's see all the scenarios and let's make a decision on that, because I think cutting this project down and losing our goal of making it marketable to the greater swimming community would fail to reach the goal from the beginning. So if we can figure out a way to do it, I think we all want to try to see it.
Okay.
I concur with that concept.
Well, I think we'll have enough time in the next couple of weeks to do that. And we may be able to wait until next month's meeting. I know the deadlines are, it's going to take about 50 weeks to get this whole thing torn down, rebuilt, and all the rest of it. And so we want to go,
Want to be open next year?
We do. It's hard enough to find lifeguards for Rosa, and if we have to do it after the season's already started, they're all gone. Okay.
Good.
So that's all I got for the pool at this point. Y'all have any more questions about that?
No, it sounds like everybody's agreeable to a meeting, in between. At least I heard no objections.
It's going to be nice either way. It's going to be 50 years worth of update, coming. So it is going to look great. These are the alternates. In blue is the team lockers. When we add the team lockers, that actually necessitates the detention pond per the code. And so because we're not adding to the footprint, we don't need to do that. To the right side, that little purple is a monument sign. The pink one on your left is that breezeway that's elevated. Now it'll just be, a part of the roof. And in the orange, you have the spectator seating and the covering for that. And then one of the disinfectants, which isn't needed, but we're removing a piece of technology. We're still compliant with TCEQ. If we can move into that technology into the future when we can afford it, it'll be great. But so we got quite a few things that are on the alternate list on this project.
Like on the alternate list, the big space, that would add to the lockers and those will be left available to be, if they're not part of this project. The land itself will be
stubbed out, and so basically they would need to
It'd be
pour the
available.
pad. They would need to build the building, put all the appurtenances, do everything there, but it'll be ready for it. And that piece alone is about $900,000. That was immediately taken off as a base bid, like.
But
7
it's
months
still
ago.
for future plans.
It is still
if
for
not
future
part
plans.
of this.
We would have been the only municipal pool to have like a team locker
Yeah,
room,
I mean, that's-
and we don't
that's
even have
true.
a team yet. Right, so.
Yes.
Okay. Golf course, okay. A lot of pieces of the golf course project. They have started sprigging on the tee boxes, which is the latest thing. They haven't done it on the greens because they had some weeds in the mix that's it comes from King Ranch down south. And so they have to get the weeds out. And that takes a little bit of time. So it looks like we have about 2 or 3 weeks for the greens to come in. I got that message today that we got from our contractors at XGD. And so that's going to give us, I think, about a 100-day timeline for the grow-in. The optimal is 120 days to have it, so we were shooting for at least 90, and so we should get 100, maybe 110 days out of it. Bridge demo is complete. The constructions are ongoing. We have torn down the old restroom. That should have changed, I'm sorry. The install on the new one will come about the time the Heart of the Hills is gonna be here, so I'm not sure if we can intersect those two right on time, if we can. But we're working with the contractors to speed that up as much as we can. Pro shop repairs and then deck renovations. So the deck, how many of you have been to the golf course and seen it? When you walk out of the back, there's a very short deck that's about this size with a bunch of pillars. And then it drops down about 3 or 4 feet, and then there's a continued deck with benches there. It's really, really dead space that hardly ever gets used. And so what we want to do is we're just going to level that whole thing out to the top level. And so it'll just be one deck, not a 2-tiered deck. And so I think we'll get a lot more activity, a lot more people using it that way. And then, let's see. So, new bridges. That's the bridge on number 3 on the right. And that is a new cart path on number 10 over there. I'll get you better picture. We'll get more pictures for all this stuff, but those are kind of the 2 biggest pieces right there. And so, Rosa, do you have any more that we have on that one? No? I think that covers a lot of it. So it's on schedule. Heart of the Hills is slated for September, and so our plan is to be open then. Let's see, what else for golf? All right. Hopefully y'all drive on water and see the changes to the AC Shriner House. The elevator not only is steel framed, but it's wrapped in Tyvek, and so they're working their way through that process. It still looks the same from the demo and the interior if you were to look at it. They've done a ton of work, but it's that, putting new electrical line, putting new plumbing line, and doing all that running. So we don't really have too many new photos with that project, but it's coming in at budget. So we were able to save some money in one section and account for a few moderate, additions based on what the HHHC folks were asking for. So we'll be able to have dimmers in the lights so that they can, kind of adjust those things for the exhibit spaces. Initially, they had a historic carpenter as a part of the bid, and we saved $120 grand by not having to do that, which is fantastic because it's not a historic building. It's just, it doesn't need a historic carpenter to work on it. So substantial completion by mid-December. And that one is ongoing. Okay. No real updates to Granger McDonald other than the folks at UGRC had an event on the 6th, and I think it went really well. Cold, and it was blowing a little bit. Yeah.
We just have 300 people.
Great.
So we're still waiting. Haven't heard anything new from the state as far as their review process and review period. It does need to go to U.S. Fish and Wildlife, so hopefully that review turnaround time's gonna go fine. More to come on that. And if we don't get the grant, we'll immediately turn around and move on down the road and start the process of building, soliciting that contract. Some of y'all were able to make it out to Guadalupe and KSP. Those are both opened, and it was a good event out at Guadalupe.
I want to say something real quick on that. Driving down Guadalupe Street every day to go to the office, it's amazing. Even the mayor does the same thing. And that playground every day is packed.
It is.
It is packed full of people. So it's awesome to see. Yesterday driving by there on Easter, it was absolutely full of citizens. thank everybody that was involved in that
Oh, that's great.
for that park.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Really good. Okay.
People there.
Habitat is here, Mary's here. Sorry, got something in my throat. You have the amendment on today's agenda. James Avery is still waiting. I talked to Tom Pogue over there. They're waiting on TxDOT for that agreement to come in for the donation. Lennar is rocking and rolling, so they're moving along fast. The River Trail, still working on the easements. We're getting closer and closer each day, but it's still a challenge. We got 5 or 6 of us working on that one separately, tackling individual owners and who's got a better relationship with this person and who's got this one.
What section are you working on?
Past the pavilion.
Mm-hmm.
So that section to G Street. So the Lux Apartments, which is for sale at this point. So, right, trying to get an easement for a property that's potentially going to go under sale. So we're trying to do that one before or hopefully right after that happens. And then 2 others along with the ones that we talked about before. So I think 4 total is where we're at. But we're on our way. We're making good headway. We had a good meeting last week about it, so I'm hopeful. Stuart walked the path the other day, and he said there's going to be a section that's pretty steep behind right when you get past the Shriner One space. You go a little further down there. So it's going to be a little interesting how the construction's going to have to go there.
Sawmill was, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a little bit past that, it's pretty steep. The same is true of when we go west, Nimitz Lake, when you go like underneath Snowflake Donuts and that kind of area over there, there's a couple of sections where it's gonna be like, it's cantilevered and we're gonna have to figure it out. But that's what we have the engineers for, so. All right, I'm rambling. With that, I'm done.
Okay. Any questions about any projects that were either discussed or on this list? Do we have anyone signed up to speak on item 4A?
Not on this item.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Rice.
Madam Chair, members of the ESC, how are y'all doing this evening or late afternoon? So this is Todd was unable to be here, but he put together this PowerPoint presentation for me to kind of just do a quick overview. This is less probably a monthly report and probably more of kind of a quarterly or, up to the year report. But really just kind of talk through, Todd has been extremely busy. I'm preaching to the church on this, but we are extremely grateful Todd has stepped up into that interim director role. And what he has already done in the short amount of time that he has been there has been very instrumental in what EDC is doing in the direction that they're going. And so I just want to give a shout out to Todd and everything that he's doing. It's amazing. So in this, we're going to kind of go over just some of the business retention and expansion, or BRE, talk a couple high-level things on some real estate and recruitment, some workforce development, some sustainability projects, and one partnership that we're working with the EDC board on as well. And really, again, the focus, like anything, is how do we focus on the small or local growth and strategic initiatives. That's been kind of a big focus of EDC really since the end of last year or since the fiscal year, and really just making sure that we have the relevance and how do we show that to the EIC board that there is relevance there. As I'm going through this, this presentation, we know Gil and Katie kind of did one version of it. This is going to be a version of it, but I really want to get some feedback from the EIC members. What do y'all want to see? If there's things in here that y'all want to see differently, see better, or see relevant, we are going to be working on kind of a newsletter over the next, few months. on how we can get some good information out to y'all. Our EDC consultant that we're using, and we'll talk a little bit about that on the organizational side. We're shifting their focus and less in the day-to-day and more into actually economic development, which is where they should be putting their focus on. So if there's anything that y'all want to see more of or less of, please let us know, and we can make sure we get that included into the presentation. So our unemployment rate is actually down about 0.3% from what it was in February. Unemployment rate is especially important out here in the Hill Country since we don't have major metropolitans to pull onto workforce. We are traditionally below the state average and national average. Just something that we kind of keep an eye on, which I'm going to skip the next slide and go into workforce development initiatives, because I think that's what this kind of pertains to, is how do we focus on the workforce. Todd and the EDC, and I'm really just going to put it on Todd, has been really focused. I've met with him a few times, along with Greg Appel on a few initiatives as well, on different focuses, that we want to, look at. What are some important things? We've focused on childcare. We've had a summit on childcare. We've talked with education. We've actually met with Schreiner and some of the ISDs, school districts on, how do we align some of the workforce development programs, along with Ben Wynn over at Schreiner University. We've met with him a few times. We've had the kind of Texas Venture Fest and some of these other summits, if you will. And so we've been kind of, throwing around, an industry roundtable. Some of the, I'm not going to say challenges, but some of the things the board has kind of talked through is, what are some things that we want to invest in and dive into and take ownership of versus what would be more relevant for other folks to kind of, spearhead? For example, childcare. Is that an area that the EDC, should put sole focus, into, or is that something that we should be looking for champions to be able to champion some of those projects? So the board has been kind of talking about a lot of different approaches and how we want to go do that. But we've met with Schreiner on some of these workforce development initiatives, along with the ISDs, and how do we work on workforce development with hospitality workers or food and beverage, or any number of industries? How do we kind of work with them on creating those pathways? Again, not to take ownership of it, but how do we partner and work with these different groups to really accomplish that? So a lot of time has been really into working with the childcare side, working with our educators and institutions, and along with some of the industries on what some of the needs are. Greg Appel, Todd, and I met with a local company about the need for welders and how do we find those welders and what does that look like? And so we're trying to help be the facilitators with some of those business retention and expansion projects and what some of these companies are looking at. The facility acquisition, a local company bought a location or facility out of state. They do want to expand also. It's a separate facility, but they do want to expand, here. We've been working with the owners of the company and some of their consultants on how do we make sure, they're on Bandera Electric. How do we potentially try to get them on KPUB? We're working with them on, some of the workforce development challenges and issues, site locations, internet is a topic that's come up, and how do we get them, some of the services or some of the utilities, if you will, that they need to be able to expand locally and expand their operations. Of course, some of these we're going to try to tie project names to them at some point, but we're really not at that point right now. But a lot of great discussions on some of the industrial side. I say industrial side, some of the light industry side, some of the stuff out by the airport. We're really working with a lot of stakeholders, and what does that future look like, especially on the retention and expansion side of the business. Redevelopment and leasing. This actually was a really unique opportunity that kind of, I'm not going to say came out of nowhere, but as we were kind of talking through things from both the city side and the EDC side, we realized that there's obviously the ETJ. Now, while the state's trying to take away the ETJ, that there's still relevance of economic development within the ETJ, and there's still benefits and small businesses and businesses within the ETJ. And the cutoff, which is under redevelopment, they're kind of a small professional type building that's kind of scalable, I'm not going to say build to suit, but I guess tenant to suit. They can kind of scale it to however they want. They did, we met with them on some of the challenges that actually came out of the economic summit. They had approached me then, and I connected them with Todd. And we sat down and kind of talked through some of the challenges of vacant spaces. What are some of the inventory out there that people can kind of, get into, or what's available for purchase. This will lead into some of the organizational side, but now we have some of these vacant spaces coming up on our website so people can kind of search through them. We are going to be working both with the EDC and the city to work on more some of those inventory lists of what's available, what's going to be available, and how do we help, some of these small businesses or businesses that are either expanding, recruiting or moving in, or just startup businesses that can find locations that are doing well. There is an overabundance of inventory right now, so we are trying to help some of the stakeholders out there in searching for that. Industrial opportunities. Todd had talked with a couple brokers. And really, again, this kind of led into that property search side. How do we be a resource for businesses, both in the ETJ and within the city, to find those places that people can go to? So we're starting to make connections with some of the local brokers and some of the real estate folks that are working with their constituents to potentially help, again, be a resource for these businesses that are wanting to do more. Healthcare and hospitality, I might have spun up on these, but did talk with Todd. We have two of them, one in the healthcare side, potentially wanting to look at a micro hospital somewhere, and then another prospect, looking at the hospitality side. Again, a lot of these are very kind of new. We haven't even assigned a project code or anything to them, so really high level updates. But again, what Todd has done has really been the boots on the ground, kind of seeking out and finding this information, which really leads into the organizational management. And this was kind of the core of everything we really started working on in October, November of last year. Little things that Todd had really uncovered and fixed was, we had a phone number on the website. We didn't even know where it went to. So I know that sounds crazy and simple, but that was some of the things that we were navigating. And so Todd has, ultimately single-handedly worked through. We're working with Teresa still. She's our EDC consultant. We did kind of trim some of the other consultants out for some cost-saving measures, website stuff and some other things. Running a very lean budget, but working through building that budget up so we can again look towards to the future. We're looking at some customer relation management software. Again, how do we communicate more effectively with our stakeholders, internal, external, everywhere. Project management. All the different side of operations, we're looking at how do we better communicate this. Again, I talked a little bit about the website. If you go on the website now, it's still kind of under construction. We are working through overhauling that. Again, little things that Todd kind of uncovered have been instrumental in it. So now you can go on the website, look at resources as far as vacant spots, or it's just tied to LoopNet right now. But again, we're working on expanding what that looks like. And again, how do we be a resource for those in the economic development sphere? Working on more marketing materials. A couple things we've pushed over to the consultant a little bit. If you ask me right now, if Kyle asked me right now, hey, I need do you have a brochure on why I should come to Kerrville? I don't have one. Now, we do actually. We have a draft of one, and so we're working on getting some of those brochure and marketing materials out there, so when people want to ask, hey, why Kerrville or why this area, we can provide them that information, and they can get the housing, they can get the unemployment, they can get all some of their due diligence that they would, want to have to bring a business or to bring their business, in here. We've also met with some of the stakeholders too on potentially what an industry analysis looks like. Not just the stakeholders on the industry analysis, but we've been trying to work with academia on could potentially Schreiner or somebody work with us on what type of industries would thrive here. So we are looking at a whole bunch of different things that can again benefit the economic development world here in Kerr County. Child Care Summit, we are going to be submitting the video for an IEDC, International Economic Development Corporation Award. So we're going to be submitting that here soon. And as far as bookkeeping and some of kind of the organizational management, steps, Kerr EDC contract with the city of Kerrville to do the bookkeeping. So city of Kerrville is now doing bookkeeping services for EDC. And then we should be wrapping up an audit in May. Under the EDC bylaws, it was technically every, I think, 2 or 3 years that an audit needed to be done, and so we need to get that caught back up. And that'll get us up to date. So the regional partnership, the board had kind of talked through this. I don't even mind sharing it. In this area, it's the Greater San Antonio Partnership, or Greater SATX. Houston has one, the Greater Houston Partnership. San Marcos has one, and they're really large kind of partnerships, if you will, of different cities, different EDCs, different communities, counties, whatever, that kind of all partner together for a region to support kind of economic development growth within it. And they're a great economic development resource as far as providing incentive packages. They have entire teams of economic developers and marketers and folks, leads, recruiting, retention, expansion. They have a lot of resources for it. The board talked through it. Kerr County is actually not on the list right now to do it, so we are working with their board or the executive board. We don't anticipate any issues. They'll basically vote for Kerr County to come, to get us into the partnership. Once that happens, we'll do a stakeholder engagement down in San Antonio with their board and do an introduction, and we'll be a part of that. But the cost of that is relatively low. Compared to the services that you ultimately get out of it. So we're really looking forward to become a part of that. And with that, I will take any questions.
Has there been any movement on an executive director? And what's the latest on that?
Right now, Todd is still the interim executive director. So we have not formally gone out for any. We have not opened it up for anything. There's some things that we're trying to work through, but I will definitely keep you all updated on that one. So currently, Todd is the interim executive director.
So through the budget, and this is just a question, and I guess it's probably like this every year, and I know that KEDC is within I assume within the budget that they've been allotted for this year.
Yes, ma'am.
But there's rightfully so been probably some significant redirection in where those funds are going based on changes that are obviously being addressed for the good.
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess 2 questions. The first one is, I guess I've never been part of a funding board where this much of the budget has been reallocated, and if there's anything legally that we need to do, I'm not sure that there is, just because of the significant changes in direction, for one, and then for future, the budgeting cycle is how is that part? I know you still have to develop the big picture and the scope and everything, but given the timelines for, the budget and how you have to back into those,
Yes, ma'am.
what does that look like?
So to answer your first question, we have not done any budget amendments at this point. So we are technically not adding to the budget. We're actually taking away. So we're actually going to end up likely with a surplus this year. So even with the unanticipated things that unfolded kind of last year, no misappropriations or anything,
Right.
but just how everything kind of unfolded. So even though all of that's happening, we are still anticipating a surplus. We will have better financial updates to give y'all, as part of this process, if y'all want to see them. But as soon as we get a point, we will either do a budget amendment or let y'all know for the current year just to do some cleanup. And so y'all are aware of what the we'll call it this fiscal year's budget looks like. In preparation for the next budget year, same thing. We'll be working with the board to develop, strategies, what we want to do. We'll talk with, EIC and see how all that looks, and we'll present that on time. We are still running the November to October cycle, so they're 1 month behind everybody else. So we're October to September. That may change, but as of right now, it's still the November to October one. So we'll be starting the budget process, I'd say here. We're really actually doing it since since City of Kerrville is now the bookkeepers, for it, they are kind of cleaning up. So everything that was kind of needed to be cleaned up to get ready for the audits, we're already in the process of doing that. And so we'll be ready to go by the time the budget comes, and we'll have a good solid set of numbers and budget for the board and for council.
And then is KDC moving forward with the understanding or belief that all the funding partners are going to stay in place, or some of the funding partners are going to stay in place, or?
Yeah, so, I've talked to the board from the city side that more than likely the city portion is likely going to be the one that we'll recommend to remove, but as of now, it's still in place. That won't come until the budget side, so council has to decide that one. That's just from the city manager side, the recommendation. And then we have not heard anything from KPUB or from the county, but from some of the discussions just behind the scenes, I don't anticipate any funding issues to unfold, but we'll keep the board apprised of that as well. So I haven't heard anything negative on that front.
Good, that's good.
Any timing update on the Mega Creek application?
Yes, sir. So right now, of course, TCEQ changed their permit stuff again in January of this year. So they got delayed another couple weeks, but we talk with Salvador, the CEO of Mega Creek, regularly. Todd and I do, and some others may as well. But I think they're a couple weeks out from submitting their additional permit. Then it'll be a long process, but we're probably going to be engaging some of the state stakeholders in this, to some of our reps, to see if we can, especially with the governor's office, to see if we can maybe push that along a little bit or see what they can do. Because the governor's office gave us this lead. This was not something we sought out. We got this from the governor's office. So we'll more to follow on that one. But they should hopefully be submitting their permit in the next couple weeks. Fingers crossed.
And does that mean that they'll get to start the construction process?
No, ma'am. It'll probably be 9 months. So they are substantially delayed with the new permit, and the new permit, even just getting submitted, took about 4 or 5 months just to get all the stuff. But the modeling and everything that they have to do for this permit is really exactly what TCEQ
Basically
needs.
designed for it, isn't it?
Correct. It is pretty much designed for it. And so
That's
the
good.
air modeling quality that they're going to put through is going to show every scenario of what's going to happen. So it's a good thing. It's just, unfortunately, it's got to get now wrapped up into the new TCEQ permit process. More to follow on that one, but great question.
Anybody else have questions? Thank
All
you.
right, thank you all.
Anyone signed up to speak on item 4B?
No speakers.
All right, financial update.
Good evening. All right, so we're looking at March 2025 financials. Here is your revenue bond activity. Your yellow column, the March activity, obviously. So 73,734 earned on your investment income. That is the money sitting in your tax pool account, and then your one short-term investment we have purchased with those bond funds. Down into your project section, we have a total of $562,000 for the month in expenditures, and that was $361,000 for the golf course, $1,900 on the Olympic pool, $1,300 on Callow Theater. We have one more payment left on the interactive playground project, and then $26,000 for Granger McDonald. So with your $20 million in revenue bond proceeds minus those project expenses through March of '25, you have remaining bond funds of $17,763,000. And then we have your interest income and arbitrage liability set aside, but the net of that is $1,030,000.
Ask you real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
So how is the work being done at the Heritage Center if they're not drawing any of the funds?
So that's a compilation of funds, a combination of many outlets. We have HOT funds, library memorial funds, and then EIC funds. So we just been kind of plucking along. I think the library memorial right now is eating the pot for the most part, but eventually we'll get there. Transferring the other funds in.
These are already funds that
They'll
were
call us when they need it.
previously approved for them, and they're
Correct. Y'all came in at the last.
at the end.
Mhm.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
All right, so to your regular operating funds, statement of activities from March. Your sales tax revenue came in at $367,000 for the month of March. That was slightly down, less than 1%. It was 87 basis points less than last year. But do keep in mind that February had a future period payment of $90,000, so that obviously affected March's deposit. Sales tax year to date, 2.5 million, and we estimated you to be at 2.544, so you're ahead by $16,000. We did receive April sales tax last week. That was 345,000. That unfortunately was down 12% compared to last April. We've requested the comptroller report, so we'll see what's going on there. But hopefully, we might start seeing construction and some insurance stuff start gearing up once everybody makes their claims and start getting some things repaired around here. We might see some of that sales tax come off of those items. Next revenue down is your interest revenue of $37,700 for the month. Year to date, $155,000. That puts you ahead by $64,000. And we do have that budget for this year was at 4%, which it actually started out way high for fiscal year 25. So it's slowly getting to that 4% range. You did have maturity come in last week or on April 11th for one of your short-term investments. We, at this time, are not reinvesting those funds. We spoke to the investment advisors. They said just to hold in the pools. Those are stable. Those are stable. They're not being wonky like the other short-term investment opportunities out there. Just the political environment changes drastically. Okay, down to your expenditure section. So $17,000 for City of Kerrville contract, debt service of $213,000, and then your projects funded by operational funds, Travis Street Pump Station, $694, and then Habitat for Humanity, $342,000 for the month. Total expense, $573,000, with the net change of a negative $169,000. Oh, here we go. Cash flow for the month, it's just has fiscal year 25 projections on it. Your ending cash balance for the end of March is 3.9 million. And columns to the right, we'll be filling in fiscal year 26 here. We're working on fiscal year 26 budget kicking off. May is going to be hot and heavy, so we may have those numbers situated pretty soon to add them to this cash flow for y'all. And then just financial analysis, sales tax comparisons on the top left chart. So your 12-month rolling average right now is pretty flat, showing down less than 0.25%. So that's pretty good. And then the fiscal year average beginning in October through April, we're up 0.62%. So that's a good thing. We just didn't know what this year is going to bring. To the right, you have your cash analysis with your tax pool earnings at 4.47%, and the rest of your short-term investments are holding on an average of 5.05%. We have been seeing the investments coming, the offerings right now are anywhere from 3.65 to 4%. So we're going to stay in the pools. 50 basis points higher, but it's stable. And then the bottom chart is just remaining project balances there. All righty, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone signed up to speak on item 4C?
No speakers.
Then we'll move on to item number 5A, consideration and possible action.
So, as I said earlier, Habitat is here, and they made a request last month to make an amendment to the agreement. Greg Richards, their attorney, was here. And they talked through an inordinate amount of subordination discussion. And I was very glad that there were attorneys and bankers and other folks in the room, because I know more about it than I ever want to. And my brain doesn't have room for this kind of thing anymore. So what you have before you are the changes that the city attorney and Habitat's attorney have had made, and you'll see that in the definition of workforce housing. What Mary Campana, who is here today, had talked about was they're trying to they're trying to hit that rate, that 30% range on as many folks as they can. And so it was a limiting factor if we had that 80% in the definition for workforce housing. So that was removed. And then further down, you will see the inclusion of that subordination clause 10.3. And basically what that does is if you have to take back possession of those homes as some sort of proceeding, that you won't be able to sell those houses for market value. Those homes are going to have to sell. We're going to have to continue to follow the covenants and restrictions which are attached towards at the end of the document. So I think the limit is usually around 4%, something like that. It's not you won't see those market shifts like the rest of the houses where it could be 20, 30, 40% sometimes. So that would be the limitations that you'd be agreeing to today. And Mary is here if you have any additional questions.
Did you have anything, or are you just here for questions, or did you want to speak? Just here for questions? Okay, all right.
We're 6 weeks out. We're ready.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. The very big portion of what the ask was. They are 6 weeks out, and so the agreement does say that it would be separated into 2 tranches of funding based in 2 fiscal years, right? And so they're going to be done with the construction in June, and so if the letter of the contract would require them to wait until October 1 to pay out the second tranche of funding to their contractors. So their request was to reduce that so they can pay it out in a more expedited manner. The project dollars are already allocated, separated out, and so finance didn't have any issues with us doing that. And so that's also a part of it. I apologize, I missed that.
Okay, that sounds like what we talked about. Are we ready for a motion?
We do have a citizen speaker.
Thank you. The one time I didn't ask. All right.
George Baruti.
That's funny. I asked every other time.
Yeah, I know,
Just
I
not
know.
this time.
So basically, I actually met with Ms. Campana about a week ago just to kind of discuss some things other than this, but we did talk on this. You have kind of an opportunity here to kind of correct a mistake in the original agreement. If you recall, the original agreement identified the one project type that this body has the ability to fund, create a funding agreement with housing. And it's referring to 505-153 of the Texas Local Government Code, which refers you to a state code, or maybe it's a national code. In there, it requires them to, any of the houses that are sold, they have to be to qualified buyers, which Habitat is already going to do. They have to be to qualified buyers that make no more than 80% of the area median, which they already intend to do. And you're supposed to require in the agreement that, and they're doing this in this amendment, that every subsequent sale further qualifies the owners to be in that same, it's called low income by HUD's definitions, in that range. Since they're already suggesting that they're going to do it this way, you save everybody the trouble of correcting the contract to actually synchronize with what they're going to do, because what they're going to do is compliant with the law. What you have in your contract allowing, actually allowing someone to go buy the house if they are making 120% does not meet the standards set by EIC law. It's not state, it's EIC. So my suggestion to you is to ask attorneys other than the ones you've currently been getting the advice from. Ask Mr. Richards. My guess is he's looked at it, which is why he's probably crafting it this way. Just Local Government Code 505-153 and U.S. Code Title 42 12745. Those tell you what you need to know. If you're not following those, then this is actually potentially a contract that can be, or a funding agreement that can be invalidated, which everybody is supportive of Habitat's mission. And so I would suggest we just remove that issue from there. And like I say, ask their own attorney. He's probably going to say it, that they don't have a problem with it. So that's my suggestion. Like I say, just look at those two codes. Thanks.
You know, I've been doing this a long time, and I think I've had this conversation with the speaker before. He's raised this issue before. Nothing in 505 says it has to be specific to the federal law that he correctly cited. It just says in accordance with. Words matter. There are a number of provisions in law that say you've got to be fully compliant with the federal statute. It doesn't say that. So what my analysis is, what analysis around the state, and I periodically check the analysis both in Attorney General opinions and case law, we're fully compliant. I don't have a problem with this.
Any
As
other
written,
questions?
I've got a comment, just, and not really for you, Mike, just a comment in general, and Greg, you're probably gonna agree with me on this. So that whole area, Mary, as you and I well know, talking about the HOPE program that's offered. So regulators set areas in our community. And that whole area actually falls into the LMI and majority minority section, which actually qualifies for 200% of the area median income. So somebody can actually go into that area that makes 200% of $74,300, which comes out to $59,590 is 80%. But they can actually go in and buy that if they make 200% of the area median income. So just another thing that's set by federal regulators. So that's it.
But they couldn't necessarily sell it for that because they have a cap at 120.
If they have a property that's in that minority section, now their contract's different, but just saying it swaths right through the middle of Habitat, which is set by the federal regulators for our lending. So that's another avenue that we've discussed as well, just so.
Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion on this item. The motion would be to amend the economic development grant between Habitat for Humanity and EIC as presented.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right, if you will let it be known, if you approve, let me know by raising your hand, please. All right. Passes. All right, I do not believe we have any need for executive session. Any items for future agendas for anybody? All right. 5:07, our meeting is adjourned.